And we're live with another episode of Moped Outlaws. And we're here with a real wanderer and traveler, Alise Saunders. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And I know you taught me how to say hello in Greek just moments ago, and I've forgotten already. So,
Yasas.
yasas.
Yes.
So you're
So
in Greece right now with your husband.
yes, that's correct. And our two cats.
Now, that was one thing that surprised me in the bio. So just to get through the minutia of bio, you were making six figures in a corporate job. You decided this isn't the right life for you. You and your husband. How long have you been married?
Almost 14 years.
And did you say you sold your apartment or you're leasing?
We were leasing an apartment and we let go of that lease. So we literally have no official home. We're traveling on the road 365 for the last 2 years.
All right. So you're professional travelers. And right now, okay. So to go to my point, I was surprised you guys decided to bring your cats on this adventure.
Well, they are our babies. If they weren't coming, we weren't doing it. So, and trust me, we really had to reconsider when we were coming to Greece because the paperwork for them was a little bit intense. The whole situation of exporting cats to a foreign country is a little intense. Airplanes, right? The paperwork, getting them through, the whole thing. It was intense.
Yeah, that's what I've heard is any animal, even going to Hawaii, like any animal off the mainland is a big ordeal.
Yes.
You guys were willing, they're family. So you're like, we're
Yep.
doing this for family.
Yep.
All right.
It's one of the things that I noticed that's different about the way you've chosen to occupy the digital nomad space is it appears as if you haven't brought with you a van or a large bus conversion, that you're doing this through occupying buildings and having different homes as you go. When you were in the continental US, did you entertain the idea of being in an RV or anything like that as part of the process?
Originally, when we had come up with this idea years and years before we actually did it, we put a down payment down on a Sprinter van. And the day that we were supposed to go pick it up, my husband was like, it's too small. I can't do it. No way. And so we really just rolled everything back, really tried to figure out how it was that we wanted to move forward. That was when I went ahead and left my six-figure job, opened my own company, and was working from home. So we were just really retooling the whole idea. What do we want? How do we want to do it? And that was ultimately when everything just started to move forward. We started to get a lot of clarity finally. And we really decided for both of our happiness, we needed good, dependable Wi-Fi. We needed space. We needed amenities like washer, dryer. We wanted to be able to spread out. We wanted, not to really have to wrestle with our space as far as occupying the items that we were bringing and traveling with us, right? And so we just really landed on the Airbnb model, and we've done it the entire time. Sometimes we've stayed in a couple of hotels, either overnight. North Dakota, South Dakota, we stayed in hotels because the Airbnbs were just terrible there based on our particular needs. And so we stayed a couple weeks in hotels along the way, but the majority has been in Airbnbs, and it's just really served us well.
So what's the wildest Airbnb in the United States? Like treehouse or unique shape to the home or?
Let's see. Wildest Airbnb. We did have one that was like a treehouse. We were up really, really high. The view was absolutely beautiful. In general, we've just had a couple that have just been our favorites because of the lighting, the vibe, the view, right? So it just we've just been so lucky on some of the places that we've been able to stay.
So where was 2 of your favorite locations based on the place you were in?
We really loved the Florida Keys, absolutely loved Maine. Several places in California were really beautiful. And then, of course, went through Glacier, Yellowstone, Tetons. I mean, we've, it just, last year especially was just an absolute dream. Seeing some of the most beautiful places in the world, in the United States, last year was just an absolute dream.
You okay if I keep diving forward, Mark? There's a question I got.
Go. Yeah,
All right.
we'll ping pong this thing until
All
we
right.
beat China in the Olympics.
All right, perfect. Because when you said that in your bio, you've been doing 3.5 years of healing, which in my experience is like a real dive into oneself.
Yes.
You described that you and Greg, like you're on your way to pick up this van, and all of a sudden the plan just stops dead.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that? Like stop? Was it unnerving? Did it take you like, okay, I need to take a breath? Or were you able to just roll with that?
Well, this was before the healing started. And so I can look back and say that with the person that I was and the desire that I had to travel was more of an escape from my life and giving me permission to do that. I was so miserable in the situation that I was in, and I desperately wanted out. I had been through illnesses, MS, arthritis, irritable bowel syndrome. I mean, my whole body was just collapsing in on itself with illness due to how I perceived my situation. I felt very trapped in my job, and it was something that I wanted out, and my body was craving this nature bathing, right? Craving getting out in nature, healing, connecting. Every time I would leave the city and I would go hiking, I would be a totally different person for those few hours, right? Those 3, 5, 10 miles that I was hiking. I felt alive. I felt refreshed. I felt so different than the person who went to work every day and was so unhappy. And so I was like, more of that, please. That's what I want more of. And so I connected that experience and said, I need to be out in nature. Right? So let's get this Sprinter van. Let me quit my job. I hadn't started the company, but that was the intention. Let me start this business. Let's go. Right? Let's both reconnect to each other, connect to nature, find ourselves, find our center and our balance. And, so part of it was the finding and part of it was the escaping. And so through the process of retooling, figuring out how we wanted to move forward, that was when I made this decision in the seeking, the searching. Once I started my own business, I was in charge of my own schedule. I had the opportunity to take a break from the world and say, I need to lay it down. I need to feel these emotions. I need to heal myself. I need to whatever it was and have that ability. And so that was when I started the healing process through the searching of what is it that's going to work for me in moving my healing forward so that I could be the person that I wanted to be.
What kinds of things did you do to reduce inflammation through your diet? And what kinds of things did you do involving outside people to kind of bring you through the transformation and the healing process?
Sure. So when I was diagnosed with MS, nobody told me that it usually is not 100% remission, healing, no more issues. It was so awesome and such a benefit for me that everybody around me in the medical community just took for granted that I knew that. And so the first thing that I decided to do, because I immediately in the diagnosis felt like my whole life stopped. I couldn't write my name. I could barely walk. I could barely bathe. And so everything that I at that point saw for myself went poof. And I'm like, I'm not ready to die inside this body at, the age that I was, 7-ish years ago when that was. And so I made the decision that it was not going to win, that I was going to recover and heal from this. So that was the first thing, right? The second thing was I educated myself on every piece of information about what causes inflammation. So first I started with the external things like removing plastic from anywhere in my home, even down to removing the shower curtain and going back to cloth, right? Taking away those, little plugins that make, the air smell fresh, the Febreze or whatever, taking those out because I was just breathing chemicals nonstop because, I bought into all of the commercials. And so it was a complete overhaul from plastic to glass, from regular fruits and vegetables to organic, from regular meat to grass-fed, like all of that. Everything around me, I was trying to help support the body offload some of the toxins that I had built up. And then improving my foods, right? More fruits, more vegetables, less fried, less sugar, really cut down the sugary sweets and treats and things. So it was so much of it was just a complete and thorough overhaul of my diet. And then of course, continue detoxing, making sure that I was getting the right vitamins and minerals, making sure that I was doing that nature bathing, because so much of my mental hiking process is recycling out of my body into the earth and then pulling back up from the earth into my body. And then of course, meditation as well. Spent some time at the Buddhist temple in Dallas, Texas, really understanding and learning how to meditate. My favorite meditation is the one where you envision, the gold light coming into your body. And my belief is, as silly as it may sound to some, but my belief is that has an incredible impact on the inflammation in my body. So it was really very multifold. But then that final layer for me was really getting in touch with my emotions and learning to stop stuffing, learning to feel for the very first time my emotions so that I was no longer adding to the dis-ease in my body, and creating physical space with my emotions, learning how to feel, heal, and release, instead of storing that emotion in my body, which also then creates additional inflammation, and the cycle just continues, right?
How did Greg participate in that process, and what would you acknowledge in him as you went through these changes and this newfound emotional intelligence?
The gift that Greg gives me throughout our marriage and every single day, and I tell him this all the time, is that he always supports whatever it is that I feel that I need to do. So when I come home and I say, I'm going to join the Buddhist temple, for 6 months, a year, however long it was. Okay, great. Here, let's get you the books. Let's get you, classes. Let's send you to meditation class, like whatever it is. When, I was trying to do food sensitivities. Okay, great. Let's get you food sensitivity tests. See if you're allergic to anything. Let's get you some blood tests. You want to go see a energy healer? Okay, great. That might sound a little crazy, but whatever works for you, babe. And so honestly, that's the biggest gift that he continues to give me, is just supporting me.
And what is he doing as far as how he handling his business during this nomadic lifestyle that you've chosen? What has changed for him?
So he retired. So part of the conversation that we had when we originally got on the road was when I went to him and said, "Hey, I have this crazy idea. I envision us traveling, getting out on the road, letting go of our lease, selling or gifting most of our stuff, and just traveling until we don't want to anymore." And of course, he was like, "Well, that sounds really great for when I retire." And I'm like, "How about you just retire now? How about that's now, today? Let's not wait, for 5 more years." And so that's finally what he agreed to do. And so he's really enjoying being a retired person. And the way that he supports the family is, I do the computer work with my businesses, and Greg really supports the family and taking care of more of the domestic needs of our family, and taking care of our cats too.
Do you find that you and Greg are a part of the community that you're in Greece?
We certainly try to. Wherever we go, anytime we've ever been to a foreign country, we do try to learn some of the language just out of respect, to be able to show our respect to local people. And Greg's gift is he's never met a stranger. He will talk with anyone. And so we just have had the incredible pleasure here in Greece, or throughout our travels over the last 2 years, of meeting some incredible people, having the connection of people telling us, "Oh, you've got to go here, you've got to do this thing, you've got to go to this restaurant," and so it's just been such a blessing to have someone that is so communicative, and someone who loves connecting with other people. So that's really Greg's gift.
So in Greece right now, are you in a city or are you in a country town?
Yeah, so we're in a village on an island. We're on the island of Tinos right now. And so imagine landing in some place that looks like old time Ireland, and green rolling hills that dump into the ocean, with ancient stone walls that cover every inch of this island.
Wow. All right, so that's what I'm kind of wondering. Are the people, how many people live where you are?
So our village is very tiny. I think that we've only really seen probably less than 10 people for the several weeks that we've lived here. So I bet that there's probably only 30 people in this village.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
One of the things I loved about your website is the map that says check out where we're going. And as I got deeper and deeper into that website, I found a lot of value there. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is the way that you've leveraged product affiliations with all of the different things that you've needed and the tools you've needed, and how you recommend that to others. One in particular struck me as really cool, which is this satellite email/text thing. And I'm wondering,
Yes.
how often has that saved your bacon in this process, that particular
So
device?
many times. And if nothing else, it's called a Zolio, and you're right, it is a satellite device. It's really tall, or small rather. It's just a little tiny rectangle or square type device that could fit in your hand. Very, very light. And it allows us to communicate anywhere in the world with anyone on our contacts list via text. And then also it has an SOS button. We can communicate with emergency services anywhere in the world, even in Antarctica if we needed it. And so, we travel on the road, driving place to place, often no cell phone reception, going on hiking, Greg doing his biking. We love remote places. And so even if it isn't that we've had an emergency, that we've needed help, just knowing that we can freely move through the world and not even have to think about or plan for or be concerned about if anything happens, what do I do, right? Like, we have this device, so great, check it off, right? Now we just get to go and drive and go and do and be and have fun without ever worrying about, if something happens, what is the plan? It's great. It's just peace of mind.
Yeah, I have two more questions. One is about the affiliate piece around your shop. And what percentage of your expenses are you able to cover with that through your website? And then I'll ask the second question after that.
Okay. So we have a couple of different ways that we interact with affiliates. So we have the Amazon shop on our website, which hosts a lot of the products that we've specifically used throughout our travels. And it offers a lot of different ways that people can digital nomad, right? Any types of tools that they might need throughout their digital nomad travels. The other way is our ebook, where we've partnered strategically with affiliates that occupy the digital nomad space, because my goal in the ebook is to show people, obviously it's called How to Become a Digital Nomad, is to show people there are a million digital nomads. There's a million different ways to digital nomad. And so we've partnered with some wonderful, wonderful companies and businesses and people to connect people who want to become digital nomads with ways that they can live and flourish in their travel and workspace. As far as what percent, Amazon, for example, if you've ever used Amazon as an affiliate, you get, I swear to God, like 1 penny for every purchase. It's like so small. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't offer a lot.
Okay, second question. The name of your website, Tales of an Untamed Soul.com.
From
an untamed soul.com.
Yes,
Sorry.
you are close.
I want to know how important it is to you as a human being and as a woman to feel untamed, and what you would say to our listeners about how so much of the conditioning of corporate America and our society reduces the breadth and expression of women, and what untamed means to you.
When I was going through the healing process, I'm not even sure that untamed was in my vernacular before. And when I was going through this healing process, the main thing that I kept coming back to was I wanted to know what it felt like to fully live. And I had realized that I had really just been death walking through my entire life. I had played everything so safe. I was the good girl to the conditioning that you're referencing, right? Quiet and go along to get along. Better to sacrifice yourself than make someone else uncomfortable. It was so important to me through the process of healing that I not only understood, felt what it was like to fully live, but the goal became I wanted to stop living in a cage that either I, myself, or family members, the world around me had put me into this cage. And it was so important to break free, to continue to push myself to get out of that cage, to break free of the conditioning, and to be this wild, untamed woman that I possibly could, to know what it was like to live full tilt, to know what it was like to be on fire in my own life, in my body, in my soul. And I no longer wanted to live comfortably. I wanted to live uncomfortably so that I could continuously push myself, put myself in constant change, thus the traveling, so that I could be the best version of myself in this wild, untamed woman that I desired to be. And coming from so many years in the corporate world, that has been at times hard to let go of that conditioning, or seeing sometimes the way that the world sees me and learning to no longer care about what everybody else thinks, right? To tell everybody to go F themselves. This is how I'm living my life. This is who I am. This is my choice, my decisions. I live with the ability to make my decisions and live with the consequences, plus or minus, of those decisions. And so it is incredibly important to me to be that light, to say, I'm doing it, you can do it too, right? Because we ever more so now need people to stand up, to be who they are, to be their best self, to bring their puzzle piece into the world, because it's truly my belief that you give something and you give something and I have things, right? And when we are all being the thing that we're here meant to be and do, and we bring that together, that's when the world really starts to change. And so it's so important to me to be that for myself, in hopes that it emboldens and gives courage to other people to be that for themselves in their own life.
Is your mother still alive?
She is.
How's your relationship with her right now?
We haven't spoken in many years.
Oh. Do you feel like that might be available in the future?
I don't know. I know that I regularly ask myself how I feel about that decision of mine to separate from that relationship. And at the moment, I still feel really good about that decision. And I often like to remind people that part of our conditioning is, well, it's your mother. You can't do that. You can't not speak to your parent. I hear, what happens if they die? What happens if this? You're going to feel guilty. You're going to, right? So I do check in with myself, as I said, but I believe that it is ever more important that we have the ability to choose ourselves in any situation, our safety, our sanity, what is best for us. And right now, I just really believe that letting go of those connections that don't serve me is in my highest good. Because at the end of the day, you know, if you want to even get next level about it, I believe that I am here to break generational trauma, and it is more important to me to break the cycle of trauma than to have a relationship with my mother in this life, when I know that eternally all of our energies, everyone, we're all connected, we're all one, and whatever the next dimension is, mom and I are going to be good. You know, it's just in this life, we are on different paths. And this is where my path is taking me, and my focus is my own highest good.
Do you have any siblings?
So I have a biological sister who was adopted at birth. I knew about her when I was about 7 years old. My mom told me that she had given her for adoption. And when I was about 20, I actually was able to find her. Oh. And we have met. It was difficult because I had waited so much of my life to have a full sister. And when I found her, she was adopted into a family with like 6 other sisters. And so I was just another sister.
Right. Right.
Right? I
Yeah.
wasn't anything tremendously special. And I can't imagine what it must have been like for her, because they adopted her, but then went on to have me and kept me. And so I think that there was just something there that ultimately could not be reconciled for her. And I certainly can completely understand, I can't even imagine what that must have felt like to know you're adopted. And then, great, I have a sister. Oh, by the way, it's a full blood sister, mom and dad. And, so if it were me at that point, I probably would have questioned, like, why did you give me away? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for her.
Yeah. So, do you have in your life, besides Greg, people you consider family?
Absolutely. I have been very, very blessed to have two girls in my life who are my daughters. And I remember when one came into our life, our son brought her home and said, she's sleeping on park benches and showering at the school, and she doesn't have any place to go. And the very first time that I met her, I immediately knew that she was my daughter, either in a previous life, or I'm not really sure what that connection was, but I knew it and she knew it immediately. And it has just been an absolutely beautiful relationship for both of us. And then, we brought her into our home at 17. And we kept thinking any moment somebody's going to knock on the door and ask where this girl is. And nobody ever did. Nobody ever came to the door. And we were very excited when she turned 18, that we didn't have to worry about anybody knocking at the door. And, but it's just been wonderful to provide stability and support and love and resources to her throughout her growing up. And a couple years later, another young lady shows up into our life, and very difficult situation in the past with the parents, and just really needing that stability. And I just am so blessed to have friends who are more family than family, by blood, children who I absolutely feel are my children that just didn't come out of my body. And it's just beautiful community that we've been able to build.
How did you and Greg meet? And I ask because what you just described with these two young ladies who became your daughters, and you're saying we, I'm assuming Greg is the other we, right?
Yes.
Right. So it's amazing, that partnership, to have created a home where, anyway, that's amazing. So how did you and Greg meet?
Well, that's a really interesting story. So I was married once before for about 9 years to my first husband. Greg was my first husband's boss and was also our son's godfather.
Wow.
And so Greg has been in my life since I was about 19 years old.
Wow.
And Greg was actually my boss at one time as well. And so, our families, right? Greg was married, to a wonderful woman before, and I was married. We would get together, do couple things. Greg actually lived with us, my first husband and I, twice. And, it was just really common for my first husband and I to have conversations about what a better match Greg was for me than him. Because it was obvious, it was obvious to everybody, Right. And so Greg didn't have anything to do with us getting a divorce. It just, we're great friends now, still today, my ex-husband and I. And so we got a divorce, and he sat me down and he's like, you really ought to think about, getting together with Greg. Like, seriously, you guys are such a better fit for each other. So we happened to be in the same city at the same time, where we were the only people that we knew in the city for our new jobs. And it just absolutely made sense, right? I was getting ready to have a teenager, though. And so we dated for a good long time. I was like, okay, you don't have any kids of your own. I think that we should live together, for a good year, because being godfather and being father, very different things. He's a teenager. Life is not easy. And so you really need to understand what you're signing up for. And so, at the end of the year, I lovingly like to tease him. I got tired of waiting for him to ask me to marry him. So one morning at the breakfast table, I got out the calendar, slid it in front of him, and said, pick a date, or, we ain't doing this anymore. And so he's like, okay, how about in a couple weeks? And I was like, oh, wow, that's soon.
He is a good match for you.
He is a good match. And so, so that was it. But, I also have to say that one of the things that was really interesting was how important it was to Greg and I both that my ex-husband really still have a place in our life in order to raise our child as a threesome, right? Together, the three of us, in a way that was going to support our son. And so, I would go on vacation with my ex-husband and my son and leave Greg at home, because we felt that that was the best thing for the kid, was to not feel so split all the time. And, we spent holidays together, and, my ex-husband actually stood up in our wedding when Greg and I got married. And, my ex-husband's current wife is my best friend. I was in their wedding when they got married. I am godmother to their child that they have together. And so we just have this beautiful community of love and respect for each other, an immense amount of trust. Greg never worries about the time that I'm spending with my ex-husband. His wife never worries about the time that, we're spending together. Like, there's just none of that. And it is so beautiful when we just really focus on putting the kid first. And we just have so much love and respect for each other along the way that we've really been able to cultivate and find over the years.
Man.
We're recording this at a time when the world tends to celebrate a deep spiritual event. Whether you're Jewish or whether you're Christian, there's also Ramadan is going on.
Right.
And I'm curious, with the description you just gave of the way that your lifestyle evolved and the fact that you spent a year as a Buddhist devotee, I'll just call it that, if that's a fair assessment.
That would be appropriate. Yeah.
What is it about the way you were raised spiritually that has you landing in such a clear and open ability to navigate life as a nomad and as a flexible, resourceful, resilient person?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was 100% as a result of the healing work that I had done and have done, continue to do over the past few years. It's all like, when I talk about working with I call her, I never know what to call her, spiritual healer, spiritual advisor, Reiki master, I don't know, like, she's part shaman to me. It's just, I never know what to call Kathy. Anyway, I am very, very clear with people to say, if it had not been for the work, the deep, deep work that I have done with her, I would not be here. I would not be this person. I would not be successful in my own business. I would not be traveling. I would not be a nomad. Greg and I would probably be divorced. Like there's absolutely nothing about my life prior to that would be recognizable to the person, that I am now. Like nothing.
So
Everything in my life was set up for me to just continue to be death walking through the rest of my life.
So I want to ask a question, and you're free not to answer it if it feels uncomfortable. But one of the things that sometimes comes up in the conversations we have is the role that psychedelics can play in such a deep transformation. And I'm wondering if anything in your life, like psychedelics, other than Kathy, was part of the way that you moved through this portal or not, and what you feel about those kinds of things.
It's a great question. I believe that if you're curious about something, that, you should look into that and make a decision if it's right for you. It's definitely something that I have looked at multiple times and considered, talked with Kathy about. I wouldn't trust anyone other than her to guide me through that process if I did decide. To date, I have not, because I feel, at least right now, that it is very important for me to do the work on myself through the journey to get to the point that may elevate me, right? And so that's just where I am right now. But I am open to anything and everything. And I believe, that there are receptors in the brain that, are open to those that can elevate insight, provide transformation. And I certainly, can see myself doing that at some point.
Seems like we're energetically able to tap into the natural forces of the body without plant medicine, without those sorts of things. Did you have epiphanies? Did you have awakenings as part of your healing journey?
So many. And in fact, I even had this really weird situation where, like I think it's Star Wars movie at the very beginning, they have the credits that roll and kind of that yellow, and it's like a bunch of words, right? And you just see it scrolling. Like I actually was sitting meditating one day, and it was like this download of information that was like, right? And like it was symbols and pictures and words. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening right now. And it was not something that had ever happened before. And so, I have had epiphanies about connections of trauma healing. I have had memories of past lives. One of the big transformations for me through traveling has been to get over my fear of bridges, to get over my fear of heights and drowning. Because before we got on this journey, I had the memory recollection in a past life of having drowned in my vehicle. I fully 100% experienced myself in that body, in the car, with it filling all the way up, the water's coming up all the way until my very last breath. And I experienced every thought, every emotion, and was able to determine that was a unresolved death. Right. And so I had carried all of this fear into this life, never being able to understand why. Why was I so afraid? And so really saying, no, I'm not going to let this fear rule my life anymore. I am going to hit this head on. And the universe was just so amazing, because I started out on our very first journey to Tennessee with like these little bridges, right? And as we progressed through our travels, the bridges got bigger and taller and more advanced, all the way until the Florida Keys, when all it is bridges. Every time I went out of my house, I had to drive on a bridge, right? There's 7-mile bridge. Literally, it's 7 miles long. And so it was just this beautiful support that the universe gave me just perfectly throughout our travels to help me fulfill that desire to not let this fear grip me and have this power over me anymore. And so it's something I'm still working through, but I have gone from being afraid of being on a ladder to putting on the climbing gear and climbing a mountain with my bare hands to driving over the bridges in the Florida Keys. Like, that is just not something I could have done 2 years ago, right? And so many epiphanies, transformations. I mean, it's just, innumerable, the amount that this intense healing has given me.
It is intense. Like you said your healing started 3.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Like what you've been sharing is a lifetime in 3.5 years.
Well, I also have to say, though, I mean, it was intense. Like I was doing 5 hours at a time each week for 3.5 years, right? So it was something. Yes, it was something that I was very, very committed to. And then, continuing to work on myself throughout the week, even when I wasn't directly with her. And so like this was much more intense than just, your average 1-hour session at the shrink down the road. Like this was just gutting myself, walking through flames constantly to identify all the traumas that I was much happier when they were in the closet. So I thought, right? But I'm going to take everything out. We gutted that closet. We took it all out. We looked at it. We felt it. We talked about it. We healed inner children that were just screaming and crying and traumatized. I sat with those inner children. I rocked them. I held them. I loved them. And, just all the things that I was absolutely terrified for another human being to know about myself, to know something I said, something I did, a trauma that I had witnessed or something that had happened to me. All of those things that, were kept in the secrets box. Let's pull that lid off. Let's look at what all those things are. As difficult as it was, and oh my God, was it difficult, walking through that fire. Once I did it the first time and I went, oh my gosh, look at how much better I feel. It's like, I want to do that again and again and again. And that feeling of freedom that it gave me, freedom away from my fears, my anxieties, my self-judgment, shame, guilt, moving myself into a space of learning to love myself, learning to forgive myself, and learning to transform myself into something even greater as a result, just made me want to keep going,
I have 2 quick questions. Maybe they're quick. The questions are quick. How did Greg stay, or was there ever a point as you're going through your fire where things are erupting? And there's an element of Greg is now standing in your fire because there's partnership there. Did that occur?
Not in like an anger type situation, right? I was not volcanic in that way because I still am learning to have a relationship now with anger, because anger was so indoctrinated into me growing up in a very violent home that anger led to violence. Violence was scary. Therefore, anger is scary. Anger is uncontrolled. and detrimental, right? And so as I'm still learning to have a relationship with anger, to feel angry, to say I am angry, I don't and have not erupted. And so the way that the relationship was with Greg going through some of this healing was his immense patience and compassion. But he also continues to say that he saw that I was getting better. I was being a better partner for him. And that certainly helped. If it was all him giving love and patience, it wouldn't have worked. But I continued to let go of control. I continued to learn to go with the flow. I continued to learn patience. I was more compassionate. I was more understanding with him, with myself, with everyone that I was meeting, right, in my life. And so he saw that this turmoil at times, once I got to the other side, there was a better version of me. And he continued to like that version more and more and more. And so he really rode these waves with me, which, just like an absolute champ. And I think that in any relationship, you're going to have waves as partners. Greg is in a wave right now, and, I'm riding that out with him. And you do that for each other. You hold space for the other person to go through what they're going through. He didn't step in to save me because he couldn't. I can't step in to save him, but I can hold space for him. I can allow him to feel how he feels, to express that emotion when he needs to express it, to be here in whatever way he needs. And, that's what he did for me. He held that space and let me do my thing.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. You have 3 children. You consider they're your children, right?
Yes.
So how is your mother relationship with your 3 children right now? You as a mother.
I am so blessed to have these very unique relationships with each individual. Being a woman who physically gave birth to 1 child, understanding how different relationships with each child can be has really been very cool to me. And, to see how they teach me, right? I think that as adults, if we listened, if we watched children more, then it would help us to be more free. And I certainly have tried to take that step back and just be here as a support when they need me and not over mother, right? Because they're all adults. And so, what do you need from me, right? You communicate that to me. Other than that, you're adults, you do your thing. I'm here to support you in whatever way I can. But I love watching each one of them exercise their own freedom and individuality and self-expression. It has helped me to look at myself and see my hangups, where I'm getting hung up in the flow of being who I am, because it's so intensely indoctrinated to be the good girl, right? To go along, to get along, as I mentioned earlier, and to watch them as young people not give a crap about what anybody else thinks. This is me, myself, this is my self-expression. It has really inspired me. And so I think that it's a beautiful relationship of give and take.
With the 2 daughters, is your ex-husband and his wife a part of their life as well? Because it sounds like your son is very ingrained with all 4 of you.
Yes. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily super involved, but to the extent that there's a lot of shared information. And so one daughter might actually, be on the phone while, I'm with or talking to, and it's like, oh, hey, right. And then there's a little catch up. And, if I go out with one daughter, it's like, oh, how was your time? How is she? How's the baby? How's the this, And so there's really just still that connection that we all still share, even though they're not really involved. There's still a lot of love and a lot of support.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's incredible. Whew. Yeah. Go ahead.
As we get close to wrapping this up, I just want to acknowledge the way that you are a beacon for human growth. And your devotion to the possibility of unfolding your full, untamed self. Mm-hmm. I want to express Greg and ours gratitude for you showing up the way you've showed up today, because we are part of the Moped Outlaws quest is to really uncover this nomadic, joyful, resilient, transformative part of humanity, and to connect to it through humor and grace. And you've shown up as the embodiment of that. And so for all the work, and to Kathy, your Reiki provider, much gratitude from both of us. What would you say to people who are still boxed in by their fear or feeling trepidatious about taking the major step forward, who are on the precipice, who feel themselves drawn to the nomadic lifestyle or the transformative lifestyle? What would you say to them from this vantage point?
Embrace the perspective that anything is possible. One of the biggest gifts that Kathy gave to Greg and I was the idea of playing in a playscape where there were no limitations. So as we were trying to figure out what is it that we want to do, right? We didn't really know, like maybe it wasn't the nomadic life, but maybe it was something else, right? And so we just took the slate and we wiped it clean. And she was like, go to your play space. Don't have any boundaries, any limits. Don't focus on the technical aspect, money. All I want you to do is dream. All I want you to do is fantasize, picture yourself there, feel it in your body, feel the joy, feel the sand underneath your toes, right? And so we did that. We did that for so long. And, we didn't say, oh, we can't afford that villa that, we were dreaming about, or, let's go to Greece and look at the water today, and we're going to walk on the beach. And, what we didn't realize was that we were manifesting. And so, as we started to have these amazing journeys together, we really realized what our heart's desire was. And the plan, the more technical plan of actually getting on the road and everything that we've created, was birthed from those dreams, from that manifestation. And so when we took everything off the table, voila, it appeared. It appeared clear as day what we were meant to be doing, what we wanted to do. And then all we had to do was back into that. Well, what does that look like? We're going to start here and we're going to get here, right? And so what are the steps in between? And we just started working ever so slowly on putting that plan together. But if we had believed from the very beginning, oh, that's not possible. Oh, we can't afford that. Oh, we can't make that work. Oh, I can't be without a home. All of the excuses. If we didn't believe from the very beginning that anything was possible, we would not be here. And clearly, it is possible. I am spending a year in Greece. I mean, right? This was not possible to the child me, to the teenage me, to the young woman me, to the me of 10 years ago. She does not know who this girl is, right? But anything is possible. And so just believe that and start putting the plan together. It will happen.
Are you up for an edgy prompt?
Oh, I'd love it.
It is possible that you could have a healed relationship with your mom while you're both alive in this lifetime.
Oh, I absolutely believe that. But I also believe that it's not necessary for me,
I love
right?
that.
The learning, the attachment. We get so attached to things. We get so attached to people. We get so attached to our beliefs, even if they don't serve us. We get so attached to our habits, our rituals, right? All of these things. And so part of what I'm really learning is to let go of the attachment, to let go of the attachment to the apartment, to let go of the attachment to where we were living. You know, even recently coming to Greece, I had to let go of the attachment to the car. The only big thing that we owned, that was a little tough. Letting go of the attachment of the stuff that was in the car because we had to go
Wow.
down to a couple suitcases.
That's
Um,
amazing.
you know, and so letting go of the attachment to the plan that I thought that we were going to have here in Greece. We had to redo our entire itinerary recently. And so letting go of my attachment to, you know, but this is what we planned. This is the way it was supposed to look. And you know, learning to go with the flow, being open to the opportunities that the universe is bringing into my life. If that's the way that the path goes, great. But if it doesn't, then that's okay because I'm not attached to any person, any plan, anything, right? I'm just learning to go with the flow and focus on being my best self. My relationship with myself is first and foremost priority.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But I totally agree with you. It's absolutely possible. I can choose it at any time. I truly believe that.
And I do believe it. Relationships do include others. So if there's someone who is adamant that they're not going to choose it, then that's that.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. I got a big old grin right now. It's been a pleasure hanging with you. It's
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. We could definitely have a longer conversation. I have a ton of more questions, but I also know that it's getting late in Greece. And I'm going to ask this. Do you feel like there's part of you that's becoming a transformation junkie?
That has a more pop culture feel in my body when I think of the word junkie. That tends to be like, oh, I'm addicted to Prada kind of feel, which I'm sure is not how you mean it. You know, I'm trying to pick my words very carefully because I'm realizing how powerful what I say is, because my words create my future, my reality, etc. And so I wouldn't put a label on it. I would just say that I am committed. I am deeply committed to being my best self for myself, the generational trauma that I know that I'm here to help stop and heal, for my kids, for my partner, and for the other people that I encounter that I might impact their life. And I just want to be unstoppable. I want to be that wild, untamed woman that we talked about. I want to connect with my own soul on the deepest level. I want to know myself as well as anyone can know themselves in this lifetime. And at the end of it, I just want to look back and say, I left it all there, right? I left it all. I had nothing else to give. I did the work that I came here to do. And I just know that I want more. I want more time. I want more joy. I want more happiness. I want more experiences. I want more opportunities. I want more knowledge and deep knowing about myself, about my experiences, my life, my past, my future. That's the only way that I know how to answer that question.
Yeah, the question is informed by this idea of non-striving, and that there comes a time where we reach a place of equilibrium or equanimity, as the Buddhists call it.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels to me like this inspiring, gave me tingles on the back of my neck conversation has reached a place of equanimity, of peace. And so I wish for you and for all who hear this conversation, and for Greg, my partner, Greg, your partner, that sense of equanimity and that sense of being in right place, right time, right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's all love and gratitude.